All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to start in Matthew chapter 5. Yesterday was my son's birthday party, and the theme was secret agents. So I took some inspiration from that, and we're going to talk about spies. There's several accounts in the Bible about spies and how they were involved in determining a situation and assessing what they were going to do about it. We're actually going to read through three of them, but what I want to do is I want to look at them as a metaphor. Dave has done that already, used some metaphors in terms of what we read from the scriptures and how we can apply a spiritual parallel to those things. And I want to do the same thing. We're going to read through three accounts of where spies were used in a situation, but I want to look at it as a metaphor for assessing situations that we might come across in our life. We're going to begin reading in verse 43 of Matthew chapter 5, just to set how I want to approach this today. It says here in Matthew chapter 5, verse 43, "You have heard that it hath been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbour and hate thine enemy." Jesus referring to the Old Testament in that part. "But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you, that you may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love them which love you, what reward have you? Do not even the publicans the same? And if you salute your brethren only, what do you more than others? Do not even publicans so? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect." In this passage, Jesus emphasized that everyone is being impacted by life the same. He says the sun shines on everyone, unless you're living very far up north in winter. And the rain falls on everyone, unless you're living in Cooper underground. But what he's getting at is that life will happen to everyone, the good, the bad, fortune and tragedy. All of these things will impact people on this earth. But what Jesus is encouraging the people that he's talking to is he's saying, I want you to see everyone how God sees everyone, to view them as how God views them. And that is that he wants them to treat those not in God's favour with compassion. He says the people that come and say nasty things about you, the people that, they like to use your goodwill for their own gain, they deceitfully or despitefully use you, they know that you'll do the thing because you're a good person, and they take advantage of that. Or they just straight out are mean to you, or they're always taking your money or whatever it is. Jesus is saying you need to show love to them, because that's what your Father in heaven does. He shows love to the people so that when they realize the error of their ways and they turn their hearts towards him in repentance, he's ready to change their life. And so the encouragement is to see that opportunity is available for everyone. And if we can work towards that, then we work towards that perfection that was exampled by Jesus, where he tried to interact with everyone, knowing that we've all come from the same point of not being in a position where God is on our side. That's just a side point, but it's one to be mindful of in what Jesus is talking about. What we can also view is that, sorry, that doesn't make sense. What we can also do is view the things that happen to us how God sees them. That whatever happens in and comes against us in our life, that God sees it as something he can do something about. And that when we rely on him and we trust that he can do something about it, then we can view circumstances and situations differently. And what we want to remember is that he is on our side, and that God wants us to go to him for assistance. He wants us to have faith in what he can unfold when we rely on his power to intervene in what comes against us. So, I want to view these accounts as if they represent types of situations in our lives. This is not a comprehensive, these are the three categories. This is just a sample. And I just wanted to explore that this afternoon. So when we look at this, the spies are us investigating a problem and determining how we will approach the outcome. Something turns up, and when you spy, you go in and you go, well, I'm not attacking it yet. I'm not starting the mission yet. I'm investigating to see how am I going to deal with this. And when I come back with the information, then we're going to go in and we're going to sort it out. Numbers chapter 13. You'll no doubt rapidly recognise these ones. And when you think of spies, this is probably one of the first two that you will go to. Numbers chapter 13. I'm not going to exhaustively go through these stories. So if you're unfamiliar with what actually unfolds, I recommend reading them. It's good to be reminded of what has actually occurred. But what we see here in Numbers chapter 13 and verse 1, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Send thou men, that they may search the land of Canaan, which I give unto the children of Israel. Of every tribe of their fathers shall you send a man, every one a ruler among them. In verse 17, and Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, and said unto them, Get you up this way southward, and go up into the mountain, and see the land, what it is, and the people that dwelleth therein, whether they be strong or weak, few or many, and what the land is that they dwell in, whether it be good or bad, and what cities they be that they dwell in, whether in tents or in strongholds, and what the land is, whether it be fat or lean, whether there be wood therein or not, and be of good courage, and bring of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the time of the first ripe grapes. So as we know, the spies were sent into the promised land to see if it was everything that God promised. A land flowing with milk and honey. Now, when you think of that, you think, well, it's going to be pretty messy, and how are you going to build a house there? But he's talking about abundance, the fact that there is resources, that, there's plenty of space, there's plenty of opportunity for people to establish and grow and to thrive. Now, in this example, it's like finding out that there is a miracle waiting for you. The promised land, the thing that God has promised, that you look out and you think, yeah, that's what I want. I've been told that I can have that thing, and then it can be fulfilled. It's a desire of my heart. Now, some examples might be a healing, whether you know that you're suffering from something and you think, the Lord has promised a healing, and when I get in there and I take the healing, it's going to be everything that I'd hoped for. It's going to be everything that God has promised. It might be financial provision, where you know that there's something coming up. You can't afford this thing that you need, and you say, Lord, I need some money from somewhere to be able to fulfill this natural obligation, or to be able to get something that I know is important. And you don't know where the money's coming from. You've got no options. But the promise is there that the Lord will provide, and that's what you're looking at. It might be deliverance from a trial, something that you're going through, and you realize, I know that I will feel so much better once it's over, once it's resolved, once I know that I don't have to worry about it anymore, that there's going to be this promise of peace, promise of joy and comfort, where I know that it's finally sorted out. It might even be a return to a previous pattern or mentality that you miss, where you look at it and you go, I used to really be excited about talking to people about the Lord. I used to be really excited about having a prayer and fast because I knew how good I felt during and after it. Or it might be the way that you would approach the meetings or approach fellowship, or a pattern that you used to have where you realized how much you got out of it and you want to return to that. So the promised land is the abundance, its security, its richness of that promise that is there for the taking. And that's what it is. It's something that they were told to go and take. Verse 30. As we're familiar with the story, they come back and they say what they found, and they talk about the validity of what was promised. Yeah, there's wood. Yeah, there's grapes. There's abundant resources. There's lots of space. There's plenty of, opportunity for us to, for our people to take this land. But there was also problems there. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, "Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it." But the men that went up with him said, "We be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we." Sometimes there's too much doubt. There's a small part of you, 2/12 if you're following the story, that has faith. There's a small part of you that has faith that says, yeah, I can do it. Yeah, the Lord can get me there. The Lord can give me the healing, the provision. I know it can happen. But there's a large chunk of you that says, I don't know how this is going to work. I can't see that happening. I'm not sure if the Lord will provide. I don't think that person's going to listen. I don't seem to be able to get through to them. Why are they going to listen this time? Matthew 26 verse 41 says that the spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. The reasons why come into our mind, and that portion of us that says no is greater than that portion that says yes. So what do? Chapter 14. Verse 28. Say unto them, this is the part of you that doesn't believe. Say unto them, as truly as I live, saith the Lord, as ye have spoken in my eyes, so will I do to you. Your carcasses shall fall in the wilderness, and all that were numbered of you according to your whole number, from 20 years old and upwards, which have murmured against me. Doubtless you shall not come into the land, concerning which I swear to make you dwell therein, save Caleb the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua the son of Nun. You wait until that part of you that doesn't believe dies off. You come back at it again. Hopefully it's not 40 years down the track. Hopefully it might be in a week or in a month or in a year, where you come back at this promise again and you say, you know what, Lord, I've let that part of me that didn't believe die off. I've allowed that smaller part that has faith to remain, to grow in strength, to be ready to take that promise. You come back at it again. That's what you do, however long it takes. But the end result of this is that they got into the promised land. And the people that believed, they were there. Caleb and Joshua. They spent the latter part of their years waiting for certain members of the congregation to kick the bucket. You're like, can you just die already so we can go in? I mean, that's probably not how they thought, but that's what we see, that you have to come back at it again. And when you come back at it again, you're full of faith. You're ready to take hold of that promise. Judges chapter 6. Now, this one is probably not one that you'd think about when you're talking about spies, but we'll get to it. We're going to talk about Gideon. So in Judges chapter 6 and verse 11, it says here, and there came an angel of the Lord, and sat under an oak which was in Ophrah, that pertaineth unto Joash the Abiezrite. And his son Gideon threshed wheat by the winepress to hide it from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him and said unto him, The Lord is with thee, thou mighty man of valour. There's a lot of background to this situation. But what we see here is that Gideon was approached by a messenger of the Lord. And he said, You're the man. And Gideon says, Are you sure? I'm actually trying to hide what I'm doing here so somebody doesn't come and take it, because I'm that fearful of my enemies. But you're saying you want me to lead your armies to defeat this enemy. And the angel says, Yes, it's exactly what I'm asking you to do. And what I wanted to use this as an example of is that you might find yourself in a position where you need to get something done, and you might lack confidence. A messenger of the Lord, whether it's an angel or not, whether it might just be someone else in the fellowship, whether it might be your oversight, that comes and says, I want you to do this. Now, in your mind, you've said, I know that the Lord can do this, but I don't know if I can achieve it for the Lord. You know, I'm familiar with the stories, I'm familiar with the miracles, but I don't really know if I can be the one that can deliver it. Now, some examples might be outreaching. It might be praying for someone that you've been talking to, that you've offered prayer, that you said, I'm going to pray for you and you will be healed. And you might lack the confidence in whether that might actually unfold. It might be talking to someone about a particular issue where you know some things have caused some friction and that you have to go and address it, and you're worried about that conversation and how it might play out. It might be something where you know it's the right thing to do, but you're not sure whether you're the person to do it. And here we see Gideon, he wrestles with that in his mind. We see he uses the fleece for confirmation that he was definitely the man that God had chosen for the job. And what we see here right from the beginning is God saw his potential. He said, You're a mighty man of valor. And Gideon was thinking, what are you talking about? I'm hiding in fear. How is that a mighty man of valor? But God says, I can see who you're going to be. And I want you to trust me that I will get you there. And sometimes when we're approached with the challenge of this thought, where we're encouraged to say, hey, I reckon you could be this. And you look at that and go, well, I know that the Lord can make me do that, but I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't have the experience. I don't have the confidence. I don't think I'm reliable enough. But the Lord is saying to you, no, you can do it. You can go and pray for someone to be healed. You can go and witness to your neighbours. You can go and resolve this issue at work with someone. You can go and encourage this person. And as we know, the army was reduced from 22,000 down to 10,000, down to 300. And when you've decided, yeah, I'm going to do this, I've maybe got a bit of confidence. Yes, Lord, I'm going to go and take action on this. Sometimes it feels like that safety net that you were relying on is suddenly getting pulled away. You know, you've decided, I'm going to go and talk to someone, but I know that this person's coming with me and this person's coming with me, or I'm going to go on outreach and do some door knocking and I've got these people with me. And then all of a sudden they're not there. You know, your resources have been pulled away and you realize it's just you. And all of a sudden you think, I don't know whether I've still got this. Chapter 7. And verse 9. Judges 7, verse 9. And it came to pass the same night that the Lord said unto him, Arise, get thee down unto the host, for I have delivered it into thine hand. But if thou fear to go down, go thou with Phurah thy servant down to the host. And thou shalt hear what they say, and afterward shall thine hands be strengthened to go down unto the host. Then went he down with Phurah his servant unto the outside of the armed men that were in the host, And the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the children of the east lay along the valley like grasshoppers for multitude, and their camels were without number, as the sand by the seaside for multitude. And when Gideon was come, behold, there was a man that told a dream unto his fellow, and said, Behold, I dreamed a dream, and lo, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the host of Midian, and came unto a tent, and smote it that it fell, and overturned it, that the tent lay along. And his fellow answered and said, This is nothing else save the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel, for into his hand hath God delivered Midian and all the host. Now, the situation hadn't changed. The enemy was still without number. The thing was still there. And you might go, all right, Lord, I've prayed about it. I've got some confidence. I'm heading in there. All of a sudden, it's just me. I've run out of people. But the situation is still exactly the same. And you think, what am I going to do? Gideon was his own spy. The Lord said, sneak in at night, go down and assess the situation, and I'm going to reveal to you what's going to happen. And God revealed that it was going to work out. No change to the plan, no change to the enemy, no change to the situation. You just do what you're asked to do, and I will bring you through it. And the result's probably not going to be what you thought. But at the end, you'll have no doubt that God did it. And that's what Gideon learned. So it doesn't matter how many people you've got there. It's just, you just need to trust that the Lord is going to bring out the result, and you will learn so much from it. You'll learn what you're capable through Christ, that even though you didn't think you had it in you, the Lord knew you did, and now you've learned that you have that power, that you have that strength, that you have that confidence. Joshua chapter 2. The third one here. This is the other one that you generally think of when you think about spies. So Joshua chapter 2 and verse 1. And Joshua the son of Nun sent out of Shittim 2 men to spy secretly, saying, Go view the land, even Jericho. And they went and came into an harlot's house named Rahab, and lodged there. Jericho is something you have to deal with in this example. It's right there, it can't stay, and you have to get rid of it. Now, as we know, that was the entry point into being able to get closer to the promised land. So in this example, Jericho is something, it's there. You can't avoid it. It's got to go. It might be a recurring temptation that you're dealing with. It keeps coming back, and you think, I don't want to keep having to deal with this. It might be doubts about anything to do with your walk in the Lord. It might be frequent clashes that you have with somebody, and you think, we can't keep operating like this. We need to resolve this situation. We need to find forgiveness. We need to move on. It might even be within your own family. It might be work pressures or demands where you think, it's out of my control, but they keep asking me to do this, and I keep having to spend my time, being controlled by what they want and what they ask of me. It might even be an unhelpful mindset where you keep knowing you shouldn't be thinking about something this way, or your mind keeps drifting towards the things that you're concerned about, and you know that that's not where your thoughts need to be, that they need to be brought into captivity, that they need to be like the mind of Christ, where you can focus on the good things. It might even just be uncertainty. All of the things that you can't control in this life, that you're worried about, that take your attention. Whatever it is, it's something that is preventing you from moving on in your walk in the Lord, and it has to go. Verse 8. Verse 8 of chapter 2. And before they were laid down, she came up unto them upon the roof, and she said unto the men, I know that the Lord hath given you the land, and that your terror is fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did unto the two kings of the Amorites that were on the other side of Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom you utterly destroyed. And as soon as we had heard these things, our hearts did melt, neither did there remain any more courage in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and in earth beneath. Now therefore I pray you, swear unto me by the Lord, since I have shown you kindness, that you also show kindness unto my father's house, and give me a true token, and that you will save alive my father, my mother, and my brethren and my sisters, and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death. And the men answered her, Our life for yours, if you utter not this our business. And it shall be, when the Lord has given us the land, that we will deal kindly and truly with thee. When you spy out this situation, you're reminded of the testimonies in your life. When they went and spoke with Rahab, Rahab said, Jericho was this massive fortified city, impenetrable walls, no way in or out unless you were allowed to. And what did the situation think of them? Terror. Terror of the living God. The situation said, we're not going to be able to stand against you. We're actually petrified of what's coming for us. And that lifts your resolve. That brings all the testimonies to your mind of all the miracles that the Lord has already done in your life. And you think, yeah, this thing's going to go down. And there's nothing that's going to stop us, because the Lord is worthy of his promises and I can rely on him. Rahab is what you will gain out of this victory. When it falls down, you will take something that will become a part of you. Because that's what Rahab wanted. She said, me and my family, we want to come with you. We want to become part of God's people. So when this whole thing comes crashing down, there's a part that you will gain from that. It might be growth. It might be knowledge. It might be experience. It might just be a testimony that becomes part of who you are, and say, this is what we have gained the victory over. How do you get the victory? Chapter 6. Chapter 6 and verse 3. And you shall compass the city, all you men of war, and go around about the city once. Thus shalt thou do 6 days. And 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns, and the 7th day you shall compass the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow with the trumpets. And it shall come to pass that when they make a long blast of the ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city shall fall down flat, and the people shall ascend up, every man straight before him. You think, well, what does that mean? It seems ridiculous, doesn't it? All right, everyone in the army, all the men of war, let's turn up and we'll walk around the city once and then we'll go home. It seems ridiculous, doesn't it? Turning up every day to walk around the city and then go home. Get up every day and pray in the Spirit. Listen to the talks. Share the testimonies. Get to fellowship meetings and events and read the scriptures. The natural thing says, yeah, but I've got to go and sort out this person, or I've got to find a way to meditate and change my thinking about this thing, or whatever the situation is. You've got a natural reason about how you need to approach it. And the Lord says, no, do what I've asked you to do, even though it seems silly. And you know what? You've got to turn up every day and do it, even if it takes a week, even if it takes a month. However long it takes, you turn up and you do the thing that God asks you to do, even though it doesn't make sense. And when you're serious about it, when you think, I'm nearly there, do it 7 times in the one day. Really press in. Really set your mind to the victory. Say, Lord, today's the day. And at the end of it, I'm going to shout. I'm going to shout praises unto you. I'm going to pray as hard as I can. I'm going to sing choruses as hard as I can. I'm going to bring home the victory, and that problem will crumble and it will be gone, and I will go in there and I will take the victory with you. It's not going to be a natural approach. It's going to be turning up every day and doing what you know God has told you to do. Those are just some examples, as I mentioned. They don't cover everything you're going through, and I can't do that because I don't know what you're struggling with. I don't know what it is that you really want to achieve with the Lord on your side, but we know it works. Which is why it's so important to talk to others about what we are going through, so that you can get guidance, you can get encouragement, and you can get someone else who's been through it to tell you what they've done, and we can work through it together. We'll finish in Romans 8, verse 31. I know he's referring to other stuff of what he's previously said, but I just want to drop this in after the examples that I've given. As I've mentioned, life will happen to us all. But when we know that the Lord is on our side, we can achieve great victories with him. And as we read in here in verse 33 of as we read in verse 31 of Romans chapter 8, what shall we then say to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? Whatever is against us, spy it out and see how the Lord will bring you through. And all the people said,